All right, welcome to the October meeting of the Housing and Community Development Committee. We're just going to dive right in. We've got a lot to do today. First on the agenda is approval of the minutes. Is there a motion to approve the minutes or any changes to the minutes? Motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
All right, the minutes are approved. Second is the Community Development Manager update, which is, for those of us who are new here, is just a written memo that is in our materials. We don't normally talk about it unless anybody has any questions. So does anybody have any questions? Okay. And Paul, anything to update since you wrote this last week? No? Okay. One thing I did want to mention, there is a groundbreaking for Lee Walker Heights. Do you have that date? I just wanted to mention it in case anybody wants to go. What's that?
November 13th.
November 13th at?
At 11 to 1 p.m. November 13th at Lee Walker Heights, basically 319 Biltmore.
Okay. Great. That will be exciting. All right, then the next thing is fee rebates. So this is coming back to us.
Yes. Good morning, Paul D'Angelo with the Community Development Department, here to talk about the fee rebate policy. So we've put together a new fee rebate policy for your consideration to take to City Council. We worked within our own department on this, as well as Ben Woody from Development Services and Bridget Herring from Sustainability. And hopefully came up with a good policy here. As with our other policies, Council directs us to take a look at our policies once a year to see how they're working or how they're doing to work within the community, especially when it comes to affordable units. As you know, we've recently updated the land use incentive grant that goes to Council next week. And so we separated out the fee rebate policy from the land use incentive grant to make it its own standalone policy, and work together again with developers, other departments, and within our own department to see if we could come up with a policy that actually we would see more movement with assistance to developers that could help us get more affordable units on the ground. So there's a few highlights to the policy in your staff memo. What we're proposing is grant rebates of 50, 75, or 100% off of the fees that you pay for doing the business with the City of Asheville. So for the 50% grant rebate, the proposed development must be within the city limits of Asheville. If it's a rental project, it must serve individuals and families under 80% AMI for 20 years. An ownership project must serve individuals and families as well, making under 80% area median income. We can do either new construction or rehabilitation. The rehabilitation or redevelopment of a unit must be rented or sold at the same or lower AMI to the individual and family as the original unit. And at least 20% of the units, with a minimum of 2 affordable units in the development, must be affordable to qualify for this grant rebate. To do 75%, we're looking for rental projects that serve households, individuals, and families under 60% of area median income for 20 years. The same thing with home ownership, that would have to fulfill for 60% AMI. And again, or you could also do, in addition to that, 20% of the units universally designed to make them accessible to all people, regardless of age, disability, or other factors. This is where Community Development Department is taking a look at more of that aging in place, so people have a place that they can stay in with universal design. And lastly, to upgrade to a full 100% affordable unit, we're looking for developers who offer the permanent affordability, as well as the above AMIs we talked about, permanent affordability for a for sale product like the Community Land Trust, and affordable where at least 20% of those units target individuals or families under 30% of area median income. Eligible development fees for rebate for affordable housing include planning and zoning, site development, building and safety, fire, and water service connection. Ineligible development fees would include the homeowner recovery fee, re-inspection or resubmittal, any technology fees, temporary CO, or the Western North Carolina Air Quality Agency. So those are the rebates, 50, 75, or 100% for affordable. We also added into the sustainability rebates. You could get $500 or $250 or $100 off each single family home, depending on how you built those sustainably, whether that's Green Build Home Certified, Energy Starred, or some kind of verification of your rating index for sustainability. In addition, you could do $175 for solar panels off of rebate off of a single-family home, and $100 for tree protection or energy-saving tree planting. Came up with Affordable Housing Advisory Committee regarding waivership of fees. We worked with legal on this, that certain fees eligible for rebates as described above must be waived or may be waived upfront on a case-by-case basis based on developers' affordable housing experience. However, utility-related fees funded by enterprise funds cannot be waived. So we thought this would be a point of discussion regarding whether we would want to entertain fee waivers. And for council goals, we're looking here for quality affordable housing and an equitable and diverse community. The pros to this, again, policy came out of staff, community stakeholders, developers, and committee members over the past year that addressed these issues of affordability from 80% area median income to 30% area median income. The policy follows community development efforts of creating policies that are easy to comprehend, usable, and equated to an investment amount. And based on analysis and agreement with consultants for 319 Biltmore, an operational fee grant like this, where there's fee rebates, have the potential to incentivize developers for affordable units. There's some cons in the fact that unless budgeted from the general fund, any approved fee grant may be awarded and could reduce the effectiveness of the policy and discourage the development of housing units that include affordable housing if we don't have enough funding for the fee rebates. A few fiscal impacts are noted as well in the staff report, and we're looking to answer any questions and hopefully take this on to council.
Got one question. Would the redevelopment of Lee Walker Heights be eligible for the 100% fee rebate or even waiver up front because it's permanently
with what they're doing permanently affordable? There is some language in the policy, I think, that before they go to permitting, that it kind of has to go through the process, but I think we left the language open-ended in the fact that if there was a project such as that they could come back to council to say, while we didn't get this approved at permitting and taking it through council, they could add requests to come back to see if they could do that and get them granted, correct.
Okay.
We try to leave that open.
I mean, that would be good if that helps to reduce the cost. Questions? All right. So this has been through finance, right?
Yes.
And so you're looking for a motion to submit on to council. Before we do that, let me just ask if anybody who's here would like to comment on this before we take a vote. Just tell us who you are and yeah.
Hey, good morning. I'm Van Bogle. I'm board chair of Homeward Bound. We strongly support the policy. My comments are on the definition of fee waiver. So as proposed, it seems subjective, which subjectivity creates problems generally. It seems to me it would be perfectly appropriate that if the city has already essentially endorsed the project through Housing Trust Fund grants or other benefits, that ought to be sufficient to have a partial or complete fee waiver, and that would remove the subjective element from it. So my proposal is to amend it to have an automatic fee waiver for projects that have been already passed by City Council in some form or another. Thank you.
Just to address that point, I think the issue there is that we do sometimes make housing trust fund grants to developers that we haven't worked with before, and we're really wanting this to be for people that we have a track record with and know that they can complete the project and all of that. Is that right?
Yes, but also to hopefully, with new developers, just to not waive the fee, pardon me, but that anyone could take advantage of. So we're hoping it does attract new developers
Right, in
to the
terms of
table.
rebate.
Correct,
Side,
but
on
when it
the
came to
waiver
waivers,
side.
absolutely.
Yeah. Anybody else?
And those waivers just have to be approved by council
The waivers do have to be approved by
to
council.
waive.
So it's not just a status. Okay. All right. Anybody else? Okay. All right. Do you have a motion to send this on to council?
I'll make a motion to approve the standalone fee rebate policy for the full consideration of council.
All right. It was approved. Thanks very much, Paul, for working on this. All All right, next is the continuum of care. That's Brian.
Good morning. Brian Husky in the Community Development Office. So Jonathan and I have survived another year of application for Continuum of Care and Emergency Solutions Grant funding. The Homeless Initiative Advisory Committee's Finance Committee, which reviews and ranks and scores the applications, completed its work and that made some recommendations regarding the ESG funding, which actually passes through the City of Asheville. We sub-grant to the awarded agencies for the activities that are included in the staff report. We've got shelter, homeless prevention, HMIS, and rapid rehousing for domestic violence survivors in the mix this year. And $125,971 is what our allocation was. A lot of homes submitted an application for some homelessness prevention. There were some threshold concerns with their application, so rather than put it forth to the ESG office and have it turned down and then lose that money in the community, the Finance Committee recommended that they go back to the drawing board, work on some things that would overcome those threshold issues for next year. So we hope to get them in the mix as kind of a new provider. They're doing some great work and we want to support what they're doing. I included the information on the Continuum of Care funding recommendations, even though that went before council last month, was approved by council last month. So today, just seeking your recommendation for this to go on to City Council with the approval, ranking and scoring on the ESG applications, correct.
Any questions for Brian? Any questions or comments from anyone in the room before we take a vote? Okay, great. Is there a motion to send this on to council?
Make a motion that will make the council.
All right.
Good. Thank you.
Brian. The reports. All right, so we have two reports that we're going to be talking about. Paul, I should be doing this, is that right? So one is an update to the Bowen report, which we first did back in 2014. And then the other is a new report required by the legislature that I guess just requires us to talk about all the things that we're doing around affordable housing. So you can maybe talk about those in whichever order you would like.
Sure.
So we did put together, again, Paul D'Angelo with the Community Development Department, we did put together a quick PowerPoint presentation on the two reports, the update to the Bowen report and the new state housing report, which we refer to as SB 316 for right now until they come up with a name for that. So some things that came out of the Bowen report, and apologize, this is a little bit small, but I can go over it here. Cost burden issues remain in the community among our rental community. We're getting close to 50% still with our cost burden renters, and that's where they're spending more than 30% of their household income on housing expenses. And about 20% of our rental folks are, nearly 20%, are severely cost burdened, where they're spending more than 50% of their gross income on housing costs. When it comes to home ownership, I think about 20% of our individuals and families homeowners are cost burdened, and about 8% are severely cost burdened homeowners spending more than 50% of their gross income on housing costs. We're continuing to see rising rents. Since 2014, the average rent increase in Asheville-Buncombe County is about 5.4% each year. So if you were paying $1,000 for rent in 2014, you're now looking that would be close to $1,300 a month for rent. So we're seeing these continual rent increases, which probably for now come out of a lot of issues, but particularly a supply and demand issue.
Paul, sorry, I'm
Yeah.
just going to interrupt you when these questions arise. Do we know how that compares to other markets?
I did look up the national average, which I think for rent increases came in anywhere from 1.8 to 3.4% around the country, depending on your location. So we did seem to be above that rent increase, especially since it's consistent for over the 5 years to come in at 5.4%.
But there report also talks about how we've got a ton of new units coming online.
That's correct.
Whatever the word was, that the market might get saturated, which, like, it was said almost as if that was a bad thing, but if that brings rents down, that's not a bad thing for us.
So it's perfect. It brings to the next point regarding the vacancy rate with market rents. Right now, a vacancy rate of about 5% in the market is considered healthy. We seem to be in Asheville pushing closer to 6% to where that vacancy rate is rising. So what we could possibly see is some stabilization in rents, or perhaps you'll start seeing rental deals. We are hearing from developers that they're noticing something similar. It was pointed out in the Bowen report that there seems to be a good amount of housing in the pipeline that's going to come online. So we're interested to see how that will affect rents. Right now, from the few developers I've been talking to about this, it's kind of coming down to offering special deals when you're renting like maybe a first month at a discount or something like that. However, when the vacancy rate, when you look at affordable units and all the affordable units we have in the community, that still hovers around 0%. So there still is that high demand for affordable units. And if you can see from this report, and I think this will be shared out with the community, that the strong demand remains there and long wait lists continue in any government subsidized housing, including the housing choice vouchers. It was noticed in the report at the bottom here that improved efforts to address rental affordability in the community in terms of units in tax credit housing and the city's affordable housing efforts was making a difference on those lower income units for families. So we didn't ask that they put that statement in, but it was nice to see that they were noticing some of the efforts that we were doing here at the City of Asheville. And then I'm going to show a couple graphs, but one that really jumped out at me was the availability of homes for sale in our inventory based on the 5 years difference. Currently, the availability of homes under $200,000 has diminished to just 63 units, down from 460 homes back in 2014. So if you take a look at this chart right here, and again, this is one of the big things that popped out of me in the report, the homes for sale under $300,000, the darker blue units, and then the from 210 to 214 shows. That chart's better. And so this shows the amount of homes that are actually available. I think these got reversed. So I'll just go back there. But these are our local challengings where we're seeing less homes available under $300,000. And for this one, I wanted to point out that if you can take a look at the home ownership versus rental here, we're also seeing that the home ownership, where you can fall into home ownership and have the opportunity for home ownership, is climbing the income ladder. So back where $40,000 or $50,000 was good to get you into a home in Asheville or Buncombe County, if you take a look at this chart, that's pushing 60 and above. So more home people at that income level are being pushed into rental versus home ownership, because it's getting harder and harder to find a house at that income level that you could actually afford with your home expenses. And it kind of shows here. This is our area median income chart, and this shows where we are between the 30, 60, 80, and 100% of AMI. If you take a look at these area median incomes for 2019 versus the average cost, Asheville, Buncombe County, which came in at $315,000, when you do that home ownership math, everything in red, that's unaffordable to those individuals and families. And that also includes if you have 20% down on a $315,000 house, so that'd be $63,000. If you were able to put 20% down, and also if you have perfect credit, you don't have a high debt to income ratio. So this was really kind of a difficult graphic to see that how many folks are getting pushed out of being able to afford the average home cost based on the area median income and the average incomes here. So moving on to SB 316, the state housing report. This is something new this year. Yes.
Actually, let's just stop with the Bowen report for a second and see. I've got a couple questions, but do you guys have questions about the Bowen report or comments? So I've got a couple. One of the graphs in the report that was really telling to me was the graph around change in household by age.
Mm-hmm.
That shows that the fastest growing, the largest anticipated growth is in people over 65.
Yeah.
And I guess my question is, how much are we paying attention to
It's a,
for that audience?
it's a good question. I actually called Patrick about that graph, assuming there might be a mistake there. And what he thought, or what his data shows, is that the folks that are becoming senior and aging in place and on fixed incomes, they're going to be remaining in those homes most likely, at least as long as they can. But it really dives down to what are our efforts to preserve and protect those homes for the senior population. It is something we're looking at a little bit with our aging in place, like we talked about for their fee rebate policy, but probably the community development staff needs to take a look at how to better preserve and protect those houses so people can age in place, and income levels that tend to decrease when you're a senior, you can still be able to stay in your home if you choose.
Yeah. How much do we know about where people in that demographic category live right now?
I don't know if that was specifically outlined in the report, but this Bowen report update was specifically for Asheville and Buncombe County, but I don't know exactly individual locations there.
Or types of housing, I guess.
Correct.
Or these rental or home ownership, or
I got this.
This could also be, wealthy retirees coming here,
Mhm.
which we don't need to worry about.
I got the sense when I asked Patrick that question, again, Patrick Bowen of the Bowen report, that he felt it was the seniors that were then becoming on fixed incomes, and how remaining in homes and how that could be challenging for that demographic.
The other statistic that you cited that of course is very frustrating is the availability of homes for under $200,000. And I think what that says to me is the inquiry that we've asked you guys to undertake around new kinds of housing. So the tiny homes, the park mobile, all of that simply can be bought and sold for under much less than $200,000. Those options that graph says to me that we really need to be digging in and trying to find a way to make those housing options more available here. And I don't know if there are even more options than that, but the market is not going to fix this problem for us. So we've got to find new kinds of housing that can be available to people for less than that.
And I know we're having those conversations with planning. I think we'll talk about it a few minutes and on the agenda here. But we are talking with the September 6th housing workshop we did. We talked about looking at regulations around certain types of zoning. There's still issues to a certain extent with condo and townhome financing. It's still not the favorite of banks. And we also know that when our team meets with local developers who are building homes at about the 250 range, which we can kind of work with our tools, the cash investor often more than not comes in with a full cash offer, and then those homes that could go to a local homeowner end up going into the rental market for about $1,800 a month. And so that's a struggle that we have as well.
Yeah.
But the home ownership, I think, really popped out here, and it's something that we're still trying to address with having more inventory below 200, 250.
Okay.
So again, this was the first year for the state housing report, SB 316, so it was kind of just asked to give us a point in time, if you will, count of where we're at with affordable units in Asheville, as well as what we're doing. It kind of came out slightly quickly, but we were able to put a report together, which I think hopefully we can use to better report this each year. Right now, currently, there are approximately 600 affordable units in use in the city of Asheville that are subsidized by local government revenue or that have some kind of local government insight. There's about 325 affordable units in the pipeline, give or take. The city of Asheville has approximately 1,918 low-income housing tax credit units in the city per the North Carolina Housing Finance Agency website. We did not include housing authority units or voucher units in our count, but the Bowen report pointed out that there were 2,781 total vouchers, which does include the housing authority's actual properties, which are more of a project-based voucher at this point. The report was a little bit vague on focusing whether it was what people would term workforce housing, we call moderate income housing, but we focused on the under 80% area median income which is a lot of our focus at the city when we reported our efforts for the city. And we talked about our efforts to produce, preserve, and protect affordable housing units in partnership with developers, nonprofits, and other governmental agencies. So for the last two slides, we just talked about the tools that we were actually using, the bond money, the city-owned land use incentive grant, fee rebates, housing trust fund, expedited review, etc. And as well as how we report to HUD. And we thought that that was important because those are also counts of what we're doing, what we've accomplished. So whether it's the housing needs assessments and analysis of impediments, 5-year consolidated plan, our annual action plan, or our CAPER, which we just turned in a few weeks back. And this is, again, an annual state report to the General Assembly on local government funding, subsidies, and activities related to affordable housing. The state asked that it was for all municipalities under, or excuse me, higher than 90,000 community members. And happy to take any questions on SB 316 or the Bone Report.
Questions?
Okay, thanks.
No, surprisingly, I do. So, and this first one may be a question for Ben. So we talk in this report about some of the missing middle regulations that we put into place, and I'm just curious now, we're, what, where's Ben?
He was here, but I think after
Right,
a few
well then-
rebates.
Okay, well, I see. Okay.
Mhm.
So my question was sort of how, like, what are we seeing now? Are people actually taking advantage of these? Are they building multiple units on lots? Are they splitting lots off and building? I mean, what are we seeing? And if you can't answer that, then maybe we can.
So you're kind of talking a little bit more of infill lots?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't.
And
he's been.
particularly the increased density on this, essentially kind of the same size or smaller lots. I'm seeing that.
I think that Ben, I'm sure, could probably answer better. He is trying to look at a count of how like ADUs are working in tiny homes where it's available, and I don't think that there has been a huge success. I think that's why it gets back to the regulations and ordinances that we can work with planning on to see how we can do that better. I know that our team has been looking at infill lots for home ownership, trying to work with developers, but really outside of a nonprofit or mission-driven developer, the for-profit developers can't seem to make the numbers work even when they're kind of taking a look at our tools. So it's still a struggle even for lots where somebody could build 4 units. A lot of times they say, if I could build 8 units here, I might be able to make the numbers work, but then that's where we bounce up to the regulations where you couldn't do 4 units there. So those are things we'll be looking at as though we've been approved by that workshop to take a look at regulations and ordinances that we could make better to help with this development area.
And I think, Kathy, you might remember this, when this came, we talked about the missing middle stuff at PED maybe, 6 months ago or so, and the focus was, I think, of the staff was on the open space and tree save requirements and trying to get that all aligned to really help this. We haven't seen that, none of that has come back to us, but I assume it's still working its way through and we'll see some changes.
It is. We are trying to, we have a group and a team that are looking at making sure we have the regulations in place to deal with private trees and making sure trees aren't being cut down. So we are trying to get through that process before we increase the open space requirements, because we don't want the community confused about we're trying to save trees on private property, we're trying to increase open space. So the planning department has been working diligently on decreasing that. We want to work through the issue around tree staying on private property.
Yeah, I mean, this was, this is a key strategy that cities all across the country are doing, these missing middle regulations and loosening things and changing things. And I remember when we passed these regulations, it was going to open up, I don't remember, like 4,000 new lots potentially for housing. I'm just not sure that I don't know that, I feel like we have not seen the success with this that we should have, and this was a priority of council a couple of years ago. I think it's still on the list. I really, maybe it's a thing to bring up at the retreat, but if this is not working, we need to dive in and make it work better. One of the things that, again, other cities are doing, maybe just one other city is doing, whoever it is that has just eliminated single-family residential zoning. Are we in any kind of inquiry where we can put that on the table already and just add it to the list of something that we're studying?
Sure, and again, out of the September 6th workshop where we figured out the areas that we could actually do something as a city, that is on there with
That's
those
on the list.
right,
Okay.
yes, so that'll be getting looked at. We have a good partnership with planning. We've talked about a lot of these issues, but I know it kind of falls in their lane a little bit about the changes to ordinance, but we're there to work with them at any time and especially share this data.
Yeah. I mean, it's clear, the Bowen report just shows, even though things are so much better than they were in 2014 when we got the first one, we're not, and I don't know that we're ever going to solve this problem, but we're just not close to seeing the level of success that we need to see. I've got a couple other questions about the report. This number 2 on, I don't know what page this is, but the headline is facilitating the rehabilitation or expansion of infrastructure that will encourage the construction of moderate income housing. And what we say under that is that the City of Asheville does not actively facilitate infrastructure improvements to encourage construction of moderate income housing as defined by the bill. What does that mean? What do they mean by moderate income housing? And what do they mean by facilitating construction?
So if I understood that, and we worked in partnership with planning on this, to where the city actually has programs where we could come in and pay for the infrastructure, or that could be our contribution to the development. The SB 316 bill was a little bit vague about their definition. A lot of other cities took it as 100% area median income or below, but because most of our policies are 80% AMI, I focused on that.
I see, okay. And then on number 3, which the headline is again, encouraging the rehabilitation of existing uninhabitable housing stock into moderate income housing. Again, moderate income housing, because we didn't mention the housing trust on there, but that's because it's moderate housing, and that's over our threshold.
And as a reminder, I'm sure you all know the CDBG dollars, Community Development Block Grant dollars, can be used for infrastructure spending. We don't often see applications that lead towards that. We're hoping that maybe this next round we might see some infrastructure. I think the issue there is that that's usually a high ask with our limited $1 million, give or take, of CDBG funding. I think would encourage to see more infrastructure application, but there's that difficulty of price.
And then my last thought, as I was reading this report, you've got a nice summary at the beginning about the number of units and all of that, but I wonder if in future reports, even if it's not required by the legislature, if we could say, if we could, sort of put some quantitative data in there about, so number 5, creating or allowing for and reducing regulations related to accessory dwelling units in residential zones. Instead of just saying, yes, we've done it and here are the standards, we could actually say, and here's how many have been built under these new regulations, just so we can, again, it would be kind of an ongoing metric for us.
Right.
What's actually happening on the ground and not just a recitation of the policies that are in place.
And what I hope will happen with this report, even though it comes quick and there was really no guidelines here, we do want to use it as some sort of primer, if you will, for an actual report that our department does to actually talk about how our incentives are working, regulations, et cetera, to really put account to this. Have that done in September, so when this is due in October, it just bleeds right into one or the other. So hopefully we'll do, it's definitely something that we want to do a better job out of telling that story.
Right. I was shocked actually that it was required this year because it just passed.
And again, legal and planning were a big help with helping us get through this.
Okay. Anything else from you guys? Okay.
And it's available, both reports I think are available on the Community Development website. I know the Bowen report is. I can also get the state report up, or I can check that.
And they're both available on the agenda
Correct.
today.
Yep.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So, Whitney, is that it? Almost it. I'm getting back there. So just kind of a final note on that, on those reports. I don't know if everybody else in the room and our affordable housing partners are feeling the same frustration from these reports that I am, but I guess I would just say, you know, you guys are the ones on the ground doing this work, and if you're seeing things, other things that we need to be doing, please, I'm counting on you to communicate with us that there's more stuff that needs to happen, because this is not, y'all are the experts, but we're not there yet, so help us get there, please. And I know you are, I'm not saying you're not, I'm just, help us do the next thing. All right, so the next thing on the agenda is a site visit to Simple Life. So this was I asked for this to be on the agenda. Simple Life is a tiny home development in Henderson County, and it's apparently wildly successful and very cute and all of that, and it also is not allowed in the city of Asheville according to our current zoning regulations. Is that correct? Or is it?
It is, well, if the units are not on wheels. If the units are.
But also either on wheels or if they're on a foundation, then they are. But I'm not sure that all of these, I don't know that we know. So if they're on a foundation, you can build a tiny home here. If they're not, if they're on wheels or if they're just plopped on whatever, thank you, riser, whatever those things are called, then they're not allowed here. But again, this seems to be a very successful development in Henderson County, and so I proposed a field trip and wanted to ask the committee if they would be interested in taking a field trip to see it, and again, just as part of our inquiry into how we can change our regulations to allow for a bigger diversity of housing types here in the city. So if the committee's not interested in a field trip, I'll just go by myself, but, okay, you are, okay, all right.
Definitely.
Okay, so that'll obviously, maybe we can take a whole little entourage down to Simple Life. But Paul, I guess if you can work on getting that scheduled.
Sure.
Okay, great. And maybe it's even, I don't know what is on our agenda for next month. I mean, if there's nothing sort of hugely pressing, maybe it just becomes our meeting for next month, but yeah, on the bottom. Oh, I think we do have a lot, so let's make it a mid-month field trip. And again, that'll be a publicly noticed, open meeting. Anybody can just do a little caravan down there. Anybody else who wants to go. I don't have the card of the person I met, but his wife works for the Housing Authority. I'm forgetting her name right now. But I'm sure you can just call and figure out the person to coordinate with. Okay, and so we need to reschedule our November meeting. Are you guys going to National Cities? Where is it this year? San Antonio. Right, so our meeting would normally be on the 19th. Is it easiest just to look for another Tuesday?
Yeah, 5th, the 12th, and 26th.
Any of those, well, 12th or the 26th work for me. Does that work for y'all, or do you
Yeah,
want to check?
those, either one of those work.
Okay, let's say the 26th.
I'm sure you're used to this council meeting,
Yeah, just be here all day. Okay, and if y'all can change the calendar appointments. So the November meeting will be on the 26th. Great. All right. Any other business from the meeting? All right, then we'll go to public comment. Any public comment? We have so much public here. Really? Come on up. And you know the drill from yesterday? Just tell us who you are and you got 3 minutes.
My name is CJ O'Reilly, and I'm starting something called the Asheville Community Co-Housing Initiative. I really appreciated your questions about the Bowen report and the line of questioning around the missing middle, and I'm I'm noticing like that trend of high rental rates not exactly being addressed. There's a lot of stuff about home ownership, but not about people who are not necessarily wanting to buy a home at that stage in their life. And I personally see like the American dream of everybody having a white picket fence single family home as a fallacy, and I would love to see alternative ways of living be welcomed. And definitely this thing about rethinking the single family zoning, I think is really important for Asheville because it's actually now actively limiting people's ability to, say, live in community and find creative housing solutions. So I really appreciate that line of looking, and I think there is a lot of solutions, and I'm excited about that.
Yeah, thanks. Anyone else? Come on up, man.
Van Bogle from Homer again. We are so excited about the new policy on disposition of city-owned land, but we don't want it to have the counter effect of slowing this down. So our request is that as you're looking at city-owned property and developing the program for listing it for development or RFQ, RFP, that you not focus so much on the high-value, high-interest properties, but you also look at the smaller lots that you've been discussing for development, because the sooner those can become available, that will really, I think, open up opportunities for Homeward Bound and a number of other agencies around town. So I know you can't do everything at once, but don't lose attention to those smaller properties. Thank you.
Thanks. And actually, just a question on that. I mean, we do have our high priority properties, 319 Biltmore, 91 Riverside, Cedar Hill, which one? Oak Hill, Cedar Hill,
And South Charlotte Street.
and South Charlotte Street. Is Cedar Hill the west end? Okay, right. Oak Hill is the one that y'all were. And how, so now that we've done the policy, we can, staff can move forward on the RFPs. Are those going to come to HCP and council, to anybody before they go out, or now that we've approved the policy, you're just going to put it out?
I think we're ready to, I think we can put it out. I mean, you know,
Okay.
the process of moving.
Right.
I think the reason that you approved and adopted the policy was to give us that guidance.
Right.
So that we could move forward faster.
Right. And on places like Cedar Hill, where there's been a design charrette and all of that, will any of that be included in the RFP, or was that basically just to tell us sort of the capacity of the property and what we think we want?
Yeah, it is not included in the RFP. We are doing 319 Biltmore first, and then to follow would be 91 Riverside Drive. And a large part of that is the capacity of staff to manage that.
Yeah, I guess I just mean, I'm not so much talking about the timing as I am about when the RFP for Cedar Hill goes out. Will it reference the design charrette that's been done?
Oh, sure.
It will, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Sorry.
No, that's okay. I wasn't clear. Anybody else? Yeah, Mike.
Hi, Mike Vance with Mountain Housing Opportunities. Just a quick thought on hurdles for single-family for sale housing is both the open space and the stormwater requirements. Those are, they set the stage for higher priced developments. They set the stage for exclusion in little subdivisions. They increase cost. They really need to be looked at and peeled away from single-family for sale development if you want to bring the prices of houses down in Asheville. I know that stormwater will be difficult. Maybe there's a way to look at the city public infrastructure money on stormwater, but getting the requirement of creating a homeowners association on a single-family housing development off will be instrumental it'll be something that really needs to be looked at.
So can I ask you a question?
Sure.
So is the problem there the requirement to create the homeowners association to manage the infrastructure, or is it the cost of the infrastructure to
Both.
begin with? It's both.
Both, of course,
Yeah.
it's both, but yeah, it's both.
I mean, that's just.
One is an upfront cost for the developer, and the other is a long-term cost for the homeowners. And it creates these little small neighborhoods, and if a developer's gonna go into that knowing they're already doing an HOA, they might as well start creating some additional amenities. All that is just gonna, it just brings the cost up, and it brings the value of the end product up. It is very difficult to build 8 or more homes, single-family homes, minimalist. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. The challenge, of course, is that I actually think we need stronger stormwater regulations, but it's just, yeah. Paul, did you want to say something about that?
I'll wait for
Okay.
Andy.
Come on up, Andy.
Hi, Andy Barnett with Nashville Habitat for Humanity. I want to second Mike's point on the need for green space and stormwater on small single-family residential developments being a burden to affordability. I also want to echo something that I heard just a minute ago related to kind of the RFP on public city-owned land and staff capacity. Just to encourage you to continue to invest in and support the community development team. We've had a lot of turnover in that team, a lot of new leadership, a lot of great new energy, but they are doing a tremendous amount of work right now with all of these policy reviews. And there's those efforts, if they're not fully staffed, can really serve to bog down the ability to get resources out the door. I think we see that with the DPA funds that were approved. I think to some degree our inability to support the capacity building and staffing for the community land trust. All of these things turn into, the resources are there, but they're not getting to the ground because of the friction within city staff workload. So I'll just encourage you to continue to expedite the positions that are open there and make sure that these guys have what they need to keep moving forward.
Thanks. So we just got the one position open, right? Marvin, right? Just left.
Sure, that position, we have filled that. Yes, with Jonathan Jones. I think I can make that public announcement. Jonathan Jones, who's in our department, working with Brian Husky, or was with the homeless. So we have Brian still there. Jonathan's moving over to finance, doing a little bit of a dual role. So we'll be releasing that position hopefully this week, as well as one other position in community development. But outside of Lewis and Marvin, we've been somewhat decently stable.
Yeah, right.
I do have one comment, but not to be like our workload, because this is a good thing. It's our 5-year comp plan that's coming up and our analysis of impediments. We wanted to let the community know, so feel free to spread this word, that our HUD 5-year consolidated plan is due basically in March, and so we're starting that process for the 5-year comp plan, and also the analysis of impediments, which goes along with that. And the Bowen folks have already started on updating the housing needs assessment beyond the city of Asheville and Buncombe County, where we're going to be going out to Henderson County, Madison, and Transylvania for our home consortium. So I definitely want the public to know that the public engagement piece of the comp plan and analysis of impediments is really important. We'll have at least 10 meetings out there. We'll probably go out into the community as well. But to be on the lookout for those meetings, whether you're in Asheville or Buncombe County or in one of those other counties, if you have a suggestion where a meeting's happening that would be great for us to join, feel free to email me and let me know. And I do think that everyone knows regarding analysis of impediments, we are looking at adding some discussion points in analysis of impediments to fair housing about an anti-displacement policy, a tenant rights group, and the acceptance of housing choice vouchers. So we're trying to up the game in that report a little bit for things that we've heard talked about in the community that can be a challenge, and hopefully these can lead to policies in the future. But those public meetings are really important, and we'll have more, or be announcing that hopefully at every meeting.
Great.
Thank you.
All right. Any other public?
Marjorie Kowski. I wanted to find out if Bowen came back with an analysis of how many 1-bedrooms, 2-bedrooms, 3-bedrooms were needed when he did the initial report. That was left out, and we were going to go back and AHAC and find out, because we had under the assumption that everything was 1-bedroom, 1-bedroom for the last several years. Is that still the case?
It's still the case for the 1 and 2 bedrooms, but Patrick, after our Affordable Housing Advisory Committee meeting, reached back out to Patrick about where the single-family homes fit in to a certain extent with rental. So he's going to try to bring to the table with the full report more information about that. He did not hit all of those points on this report due to the deadline.
Yeah, Greg.
Hi, Greg Gorham, Children First Communities in Schools. I just want to say thanks again for the excellent work at the briefing on housing affordability at the Cellular Center last month. I thought the presentation was excellent. Kudos to staff. One of the things that, if my memory serves correctly, that came out of that, there was an idea that the city might take a lead in trying to create a kind of a capital fund to help with housing in Asheville. And just curious kind of if there's thinking on the timeline for that, what does it mean for the city to take a lead? What would that look like? And when that yet another kind of workload might kind of be underway, or what we can expect to see. Thanks.
Stay tuned. Stay tuned as soon as the next city council. Stay tuned as soon as the next city council meeting for exciting news.
Next city council meeting, exciting news. The next meeting is a good week. All right, anybody else?